Hello everyone, I hope you're still ready to learn, given that it's been a long day of great talks. I am Gwendolyn Stockman at Google. I have been at Google for 11 years, 7 years as an SRE. First, I started as a software engineer. I am on the Customer Reliability Engineering team in Google Cloud. Today, I'm going to talk to you about PRDs, or Product Requirement Documents. By a show of hands, who has had to use or write a PRD? Who enjoyed the experience? That's what I expected. And who knows why it's important for SREs to know how to and to write PRDs? I see a few hands. It's important because we create lots of tools and automation that we want to be used going forward and in the future. And in order for it to be used, we don't want other people to have to go through a lot of pain. I'm going to talk about how I learned to write more complete PRDs. And you can too. First, I'm going to go through a few terms to make sure that we are all on the same page. PRD, Product Requirement Document. It should tell you what a product should do, what you want the product to do, but not how to do it. You should be able to give it to a friend or a peer, and they should be able to come away understanding, hey, this tool is going to be created, this is what it's going to do, but they should not have any clue of how it's going to be done. All of the how and the specifics belong in the design document. Now, in my title, I have user journey. However, first I'm going to define user story, the way I'm going to use it here. There are many, many different definitions of both user stories and user journeys. Here, I'm going to use a user story as demonstrating a single requirement, why it's needed. That is often used in PRDs. A user journey, though, is from the first interaction to of a user with the tool to the last interaction, and every single step in between. The goal is to understand the goal or workflow of the user, typically with a user journey. I'm going to start out by talking about the example service I'm going to use. I'm going to help people who are trying to buy houses evaluate them. I'm going to create a list of things that they might want to ask about or look into or decide on when they go and look at prospective houses. I'm also going to allow them to make notes on them. So, in the beginning, I was asked to write a PRD for this service I'm creating. Now, I've never written a PRD before, so I didn't know what to do. So I looked to see if there was any place that told me how to write one. No one did that. So I went and I looked for templates. And I found templates. I found way too many templates. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. After reading through them again and again and again, I managed to figure out there were common sections. What they usually had was introduction and stuff, and then requirements, and then more things, and then a user stories, where there was one user story per requirement. So I start. I list some requirements, and by about the third requirement, I realized, hey, why am I waiting to write my user story? I already have it in my head. it's a waste of time and mental energy to have to come up with it again. So I will write it right now while I write my requirement down. This sounded like it was going to save me a lot of time. And I thought it was. But it didn't. Because for me, and probably a lot of you, when you write something down in your head, you write it in more detail than you were thinking of it. And I had this problem. When I wrote it in more detail, I kept finding extra requirements. And so I'd write that requirement down, I'd write the user story for that requirement, and lo and behold, I'd find another requirement. And it ended up in this infinite loop, around and around and around. After a couple days of this happening, which was not exactly what I wanted, I went to my director, and he said, stop. Stop thinking about a PRD. Stop thinking about user stories. Stop thinking about requirements. What you're going to do is you're going to write a user journey. That is from the first interaction of a customer with the tool to the last, with every single step in between. Okay, I can do this. All right, now I go to do this, and I get tired. The user, the user, the user. It wasn't natural for me. So I used Abigail. In fact, I gave each of my users names. I did one from the customer, from a peer of the customer, from a stakeholder, and from someone who was on the other side of everything. Abigail, Franklin, Simon, and Sally. I started out with interesting names and then kind of went to more simple names. But throughout this presentation, you will see Abigail, because for me, it's a lot easier to think about a person than the user. So I had my story, and it was that Abigail's going through a list of possible kitchen features, that Abigail makes a note that she wants a gas stove, and that the note was saved. So I go to my director, and I'm so excited. I finished my user journey, and I started pulling out requirements, and I'm ready, and he goes, no, more detail. What? Well, he gave me an example. Abigail makes a note on the stove type item that she wants. Okay. How does she take the note? She enters it in a text box. How does she get to the text box? She clicks a button. Okay, so now we have Abigail clicks a button to open a text box where she makes a note. Okay, this is good. Now I fixed the details all throughout my slides, throughout my story. So I have an improved user journey. And I bring this to him. And I'm really excited because, all right, I'm done, I'm good, no more. No, 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 no. You need active voice. What? What is active voice? Well, you have a lot of passive voice, which can hide requirements. For example, she observes the note was saved. So I go and I learn. Like, okay, now what is active and passive voice? Because I apparently learned this in elementary school, but I had no clue. And so I'm going to assume that some of you also have no clue and give you a quick introduction to active and passive voice. Passive voice is where the subject receives the action or is acted upon, such as the man was bitten. Okay, now this is actually hiding a requirement. Who bit the man? Was he bit by zombies? It's a trick. If you can add by zombies after the verb or action in a sentence and it is still grammatically correct, you are in passive voice with the actor being hidden. It doesn't catch all passive voice, but is a very useful trick. Okay, so the man was bitten by the dog. Now, this can actually be written in a much better way. The dog bit the man. The man was bitten by the dog bit the man. It's clearer, more concise, and direct. Here, you have the dog as the subject and the actor. The subject is performing the action. The dog is biting. That is active voice. And remember, by zombies. It was very helpful to me, and I hope it can help you out. So, Abigail observes the note was saved. Who does the saving? Was it zombies? I think it might have been the tool. But note, this is an assumption, not a requirement, because I have Abigail observes the note was saved. I don't mention the tool. So we instead, because we want it to be a requirement, we have Abigail observes the note was saved by the tool. Okay, that looks better. So what we have so far is Abigail clicks a button to open a text box where she can make notes. All right? So let's try to put this in active voice with respect to the tool. Because I went back with active voice, and he's like, no. You need active voice with respect to the tool. And I was like, why? And here I will show you. So active voice with respect to the tool provides a button to open a text box, which Abigail clicks on. Okay. Now, back to what we currently have. We have Abigail observes the notes were saved by the tool. The tool auto-saves the notes. Note that there's a difference. You don't get the requirements. From the active voice version, you have the tool provides a button. So a requirement is the tool has a button that opens a text box, and the tool auto-saves. You don't see easily that the tool has to have something or do something in the passive voice that we currently have, for the tool, that is. So I go. And this time I'm like, please let this be done. But I'm really excited. I'm like, okay, I've got this and I'm ready for the next thing I need to do. And the director goes, okay. So I ask him, what is the next step? So he takes me through what the journey is. First, you write the user journey. What the process is probably better. You write the user journey. Then you go through and you highlight all of the requirements. So I go through and I highlight all of my requirements. This is where active voice with respect to the tool comes in. I group and sort. Now, you sort them where you've got maybe permissions and navigation. You group to have you'll have lots of different requirements, and you find the groups for those. You sort within each group. And then you place these lines. This line is the line which divides the requirements for your current version of the tool that go in your PRD and the requirements for future ones that don't need to be done for the current version that the PRD is working towards. Note that in each of these things, when we write the user journey, we should make sure we ask someone to review and make sure it's complete. When we highlight, we should have someone else verify we highlighted everything, because I missed something, and my manager noticed it, and so I got an extra requirement. Once you group and sort, you should probably have someone review that too. You don't need to as much, but it's a good idea. And you can place the line. And then other people do need to review this to make sure that you aren't sneaking anything in. This helps with prioritization, because you might have something, or I had something that I really wanted to have done in that first version that I was creating. Really thought it was important, but it ranked lower and it fell below the line. Even though I had initially put it in my PRD, it wasn't actually necessary for the first version, which means that it couldn't go into this PRD and prevented me from spending unnecessary time working through and working on this feature. So follow the steps in order the first time, because once you've done them once, you can combine them, do whatever you want. But in order to really understand why these steps are important, you need to go through them one by one the first time. So write a user journey. Get it reviewed. Highlight requirements. Make sure all requirements are highlighted. Pull out the requirements and group them by topic or area. And when you pull them out, you should create a requirements doc or document, because this way you can use it in the future as you continue on, as I will note. You stack rank within each group, and you add stage X lines, where for me, I was working on a minimum viable product, or MVP, and so I was like, this is my MVP line. But I went and I wrote another PRD later, and I was like, okay, this is my stage 1 line. This is my stage 2 line, my stage 3 line. It was really helpful to already have this, and you can write additional user journeys to get additional requirements to fit in and keep it up to date as you go, but it is a very good starter. Note that I forgot to mention that when you sort and place the line, you may have only one requirement in, say, permissions, but here you have 2 in navigation above the line. Each line is for that specific area. So in conclusion, this helps you by pulling requirements from the user journey instead of a user story, because if you are thinking of requirements, you'll often miss what happens right between. With the user journey, you have to have what connects each action with the next. And it helps when dealing with human nature, because, well, it's so easy to want something and to make it seem like, oh, this feature is really important and it has to go in this version, when it really doesn't. And yeah, this all helps with prioritization and preventing missing requirements. For more complete PRDs, user journeys must be written by zombies. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
Was there actually a best template?
No.
Could you please repeat the question?
What was there actually a best template? No, there was not.
At the beginning of your talk, you talked about there are other users beyond Abigail. How do you pick how many user journeys or user stories there should be for a PRD?
The question is that at the beginning, I mentioned how there were other users beyond Abigail, and asking how do you pick how many users you should write journeys for? Well, that really depends on what seems to be the right thing and what the multiple use cases. You should have one for every different person there would be that could be involved. And I could have written like 10 more user journeys, but there's a cost benefit. You've got to spend, got to do other things. So you have to figure out what makes sense, but you want to make sure that you try to cover a lot of the actions. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else? All right, thank you.